just wanna be with you. Just wanna be with
you. Giving to your local church should be easy, and with Tithely, it is. Just download the app and securely register your credit or debit card. You're done. Now you can give during church services or anywhere else. Use Tithely to give a one-time gift or set up recurring donations. It's that simple. It's fast, secure, and easy to use. Tithely, the simplest way to give to your local church.
Good morning, church. Good morning, New Soul. Let's stand up and worship together. But it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough. Came along. Then you came along and put me back together, and every desire is now satisfied right here in your love. There's nothing, oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing, nothing is better than you. Oh, I searched and I found it's true. I'm not afraid. Now I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend. 'Cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley, and there's not a place find me again. You know there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing better than you, oh, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing, but nothing is better than you. Come on, stir it up. Yeah. Morning to dancing. You turn morning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. And you're the only one who can. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. And you're the only one who can. Graves into gardens. You turn graves into gardens. It's what you do. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Graves in the gardens. You turn graves into gardens. That's what you do. You turn bones into armies. Every time you turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. And you turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. And you're the only one who can. You're the only one. You're the only one who can. You're the only one. You're the only one who can. Yeah.
Together, we are creating a new future for the Valley because of your generosity. Your financial support is being used to produce content and create a loving community that is bringing hope to hurting people during the COVID pandemic and quarantine. Your giving equips New Soul Rebecca with tools to provide access to our services and support for people who can only meet with us by phone. Because you give, the hungry are being fed, and we've launched a winter warmth campaign to protect people in the Valley from the cold this season. With your help, in 2021, we're not slowing down, but ramping up a campaign to expand our digital reach to help and inspire more kids, students, singles, families, and seniors. Your giving is making a difference in the community. 1 Timothy 6:17-19 says, Don't be full of yourselves and obsessed with money, which is here today and gone tomorrow. Go after God, who piles on all the riches we could ever manage. Do good. Be rich in helping others. Be extravagantly generous. If you do that, you'll build a treasury that will last, gaining life that is truly life. We have quick and easy ways for you to give. Online, newsoulrebetta.com. By text BLESS to 94000. By app, download the Tithely app. Or by mail, New Soul Rebetta, P.O. Box 574, Rebetta, New Mexico 87560. To receive text updates from New Soul Rebetta, text Rebetta to 94000.
Jesus would consistently keep his first century followers, we call them in the Gospels, when you read the Gospels, they're called the disciples. They ended up being called the apostles. This is the 12 men Jesus called to follow him, the first 12. But Jesus constantly kept them off balance. He kept making them uncomfortable with his oversized expectations about what they were capable of. Jesus put them in situations that they weren't prepared for. The circumstances were too big for them to handle on their own. And when you read the Gospels, you see them confused, disorganized, and failing over and over again. Sometimes it's kind of funny. Except that, as a Jesus follower, I would probably be failing along with them had I been there. And in my own life, I have reacted the same way as they did many times. I guess those 12 apostles should have known something was fishy when they started to follow Jesus, because after all, when he invited them, he said, "Come follow me, and I will send you out to fish for people." Pun totally intended. What a strange thing for a carpenter to say to a group of fishermen, right? As they followed Jesus, he kept leading them into circumstances, and he would ask them to do things that revealed that they were in over their heads and showed their weakness. And so they failed over and over again, which is a strange thing for a leader to do, right? Most leaders want to set people up for success. And after they would fail, Jesus would step in and change someone's life and totally do something incredible in the circumstances. And then he would look at his frustrated apostles and say that one day they were going to do the works that he had been doing, and that they would do even greater things than these. To which his apostles were thinking, no, we're not. We can't even do simple things. The day before you invited us to follow you, we couldn't even catch fish, and that was the family business. So no, we're not going to do greater things than you. What they didn't know was that Jesus was setting them up. He was trying to teach them something. So one day, Jesus had been teaching outdoors all day long. It was an all-day outdoor conference with Jesus. Imagine if someone had recorded that. Anyway, there are thousands of people who have attended this Jesus Outdoors conference, and no one has eaten. The sun begins to set. There are no restaurants, no grocery stores. So the apostles come up to Jesus, and they are worn out. They are sunburned. They are windswept, and they're hungry because they've been in the sun all day listening to Jesus teach. And they tell Jesus that the audience needs a dinner break. Now, it's possible that maybe they were tired and hungry and blamed it on the crowds. We don't know for sure. But what we do know is that they said to Jesus, they asked something of Jesus. They said, send the crowds away so that they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food. They're asking Jesus to do something for them and for the people, for this big problem of this hungry crowd. So Jesus looks at the apostles, then he looks at the crowds, and then maybe he smiles and he says, they do not need to go away. you give them something to eat. Can you imagine what they thought? They turn around as they listen to their stomachs growl and they're exhausted. They look at the thousands of hungry people. What would you have thought if you were there and Jesus gave you that job? You might have thought, I can't. It's too much. I don't have the resources to solve this massive problem. We'll come back to the rest of the story in just a few minutes. Now, if you've been following with us and tracking along with us, we're in part 3 of a series, The Essentials, the ingredients of a healthy faith. Today we're talking about living beyond yourself. If you're not a Jesus follower, I'm really glad that you've joined us, or maybe you used to be, but you had a bad church experience, or something happened, or someone told you something that rocked your faith. I'm glad you're with us too. But this is really important. Jesus' agenda for his followers was not that they would simply mentally believe things, or even in their heart. I guess that means to believe sincerely. Instead, Jesus was looking for followers that had gritty, real-world, all-in faith. Not a faith that's in our brains, but that it would be active. That faith is best summed up by 2 words that Jesus spoke to his first century followers. Follow me. He invited his followers to live and act, to react in a different way than they were used to. For many people, it was the opposite than how they were raised and how everyone else around them lived. Jesus never changed his invitation. But eventually his followers, parts of the church, maybe the church you grew up in, altered this invitation from follow me to believe in me. And yes, Jesus invited people to believe in him, but he never intended people to stop there. That was just the beginning of what it meant to follow him. But believe is safer and less demanding. Believing lets you agree with Jesus in your mind, but the way you live stays exactly the same. To follow actually requires you to change the way you live your life. You end up doing life differently. To follow Jesus means that you live your life in a way that demonstrates your big and bold confidence and trust in him. Because like we said earlier in this series, trust is the currency of a relationship. So when people in church, people like me, pastors, church leaders, when we say we want you to have a relationship with God, some of you are raised to translate those words as, I should attend church, check, pray, sing worship songs, read the Bible daily, and become a good person. Now, those are all good things. But instead, what we are actually saying is that in order to have a relationship with God, we want you to trust God. Because when you trust in God and your trust grows, your relationship with God grows. So, how do you trust God more? Is it something that happens in prayer or in a worship experience? Now, prayer and worship are experiences that can help you make a decision to trust God, but deciding to trust God and actually trusting God, like we learned last time, are 2 totally different things. The decision you make during prayer and the things that maybe you said to God in worship, including the decision you made during that worship experience, was just that. It was just a decision. This is important. When you trust Jesus more, then you trust yourself by following his teaching and doing life his way. That is when you experience God every day of your life. If you try to experience God through prayer and worship alone, you will always need some new and intense experience to make you feel like you are connecting with God. If you do not trust Jesus by following his teaching in your life, the new, Emotional experiences you have in worship and prayer will be new and emotional, but may not be an actual encounter with God. When you read scripture, you find out that God is most honored by our living, breathing, death-defying, in spite of, trust in Him. And when your active trust, choosing to forgive, choosing to reach out to someone who has hurt with you, choosing to be compassionate, when that lifestyle intersects with God's faithfulness and His goodness, on the other side of that decision, that's when your faith grows. But, like we learned last time, believing without doing and having an intense emotional experience, feeling guilty, having a spiritual awakening, singing songs about how great and awesome God is and how awesome His name is, but never trusting Him and trusting Him enough to do what He says, to practically and literally follow His guidance in the way you live your life in the real world, it leaves you with a faith that is weak, that although you believe, your faith is feeble, frail, and fragile. Jesus said that people like that, they hear and believe or agree, but they never exercise that faith muscle by trusting Him enough to take the risk and do what He teaches. So when the inevitable storms of life come, like they do for all of us, when they need that unshakable confidence in God, it won't be there. In the words of Jesus, He says, there will be a great crash in their life because the storms reveal what we build our lives on. So Jesus didn't just invite people to simply believe things. Instead, He invited people to live their lives with the bold confidence in God that says, what would I do if I was confident that God was with me? What would I do in my life right now? What changes would I make? What would I avoid? Who would I talk to? How would I work? Where would I go? So in the essentials, we're focusing on the 5 essential things God uses to fuel the development of enduring, unshakable faith. The kind of faith that is consistent, the kind of faith that shows up in the real world, the kind of confidence in God that doesn't need a constant flow of new experiences and outside energy to keep it alive. The kind of confidence in God that carries you through the challenges of life, from childhood to adulthood. Last time we learned that the first essential God uses to grow our faith is practical teaching. When our active faith intersects with God's faithfulness, our faith grows. When you talk to someone who has unshakable faith, they will always tell you about the time they learned how to do something with what they believed. That someone came along that opened the scriptures and taught them practical steps to live out their faith in the real world of their relationships, their money, their career, in their workplace, at school, in their health. They will tell you their story. And some of you have this story about how they knew they needed to follow the leading of Jesus in their lives, but were terrified to do it. They didn't know how it would turn out. It didn't make sense to them. It sounded crazy, but they did it anyway. They made the decision to trust Jesus more than they trusted themselves, and their faith intersected with the faithfulness of God on the other side. And God did something because of their decision that changed their lives. He did something extraordinary in their hearts, relationships, and in the lives of others because they trusted Him. He did something that they'll never forget. They may even get emotional when they talk about it. That's how their faith grew. Now, today, we're going to talk about the second essential that God uses, and that is personal ministry. This is when you push through your inadequacy in order to say yes to God for the benefit of other people. That's what grows your faith. Whenever you talk to someone with enduring faith, they will always tell you about the time that they stepped out of their comfort zone to serve someone else or someone else's. They will tell you that they weren't prepared for it, they didn't feel adequate, but they knew they were supposed to do it. They were terrified, but they stepped out in faith and they served someone in Jesus' name, not knowing what would happen or how it would turn out. They tell the story of stepping into someone else's story. Maybe the life of a neighbor, middle schoolers or high school students, senior adults. Some of you went on a mission trip to another country. You had to update your passport and you got a shot and thought, what am I doing? I'm not a missionary. But you did it. And your heart was changed because of who you met and how God used you in the lives of other people. And when you hear the stories of those people who stepped out of their comfort zone into personal ministry, they always say the same thing. I was so nervous. I was in over my head. I felt inadequate and unqualified. My dad talks about the first time, my dad's been a pastor for over 40 years, and he talks about the first time that he was given a Sunday school lesson when he was in church. They put a lesson in front of him. He said Job instead of Job. He said the wrong names. He said they gave me this lesson and put these kids in front of me, and I felt like they knew more than I did. I felt like I was going to mess up and that I was going to throw up. I didn't know the Bible. I had my own issues and problems in my own life. So how in the world was I going to help someone else? But they always say the same thing. And maybe it's your story. I did it anyway because I knew it was what God wanted me to do. I thought I was too old or too young or didn't have enough time. I didn't think I could do it. I didn't think I was cut out for it. It wasn't my personality, but I did it anyway. And the reason it's part of our story is that God met us on the other side of our decision. We saw and heard and experienced Him in incredible ways, in unexpected ways that changed the lives of other people and changed our hearts forever. That's because pushing through our inadequacy in order to say yes to God for the benefit of other people grows our faith. It grows enduring, strong, unshakable faith. When we push through I'm not enough feelings because we feel that God is nudging us, on the other side of that is where God meets us. That's how your faith gets bigger. Right now, you're watching or listening to me and you might feel that nudge from God right now to do something for someone or a group of someone. It's been in your mind or in your heart for a while. You can't shake it. You think you're crazy. Why does it keep coming up? I don't want to do this. This is for someone else. It's in your heart. It's in your soul. It won't stop. It won't cease and desist. But it's going to require something of you. Probably why you haven't done anything about it. So you resist. You feel something inside of you push back against that nudge from God. You know what that's called? That's called a test of your faith. It's where you say, God, I'm going to do what I know how to do, and I'm going to trust you to do what only you can do. This is important. You have no idea what hangs in the balance of your decision to follow God's nudge, His invitation to say yes for the benefit of other people. You don't know what child's life might be saved, what marriage might be restored, what new future a student may end up having. Someone you reach out to may end up doing incredible things with their life, but only if you say yes. You have no idea what's going to happen, but there is something I know for sure will happen if you push through your inadequacy in order to say yes to God for the benefit of other people. The quality and the strength of your faith will grow because personal ministry is one of the 5 things that God always uses to grow our faith. And if you don't believe me, just ask the apostles. Let's get back to the story. Send the crowds away, they told Jesus, so they can go to the villages. Lord, let them buy themselves some food. The apostles asked Jesus to do something about this big problem. And Jesus' response? They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat. Jesus tells them to do something about this massive problem. He tells them to do something. Jesus invites them to be part of the solution to the problem. But what he asks, come on, it's impossible. It's too big. There are thousands of people there. In the Gospel of John, John writes that Jesus did this to test them, that he set them up. He knew the whole time what he was going to do. Jesus was saying, I'm trying to teach you to trust me, to step out of your comfort zone where you are not enough, where you're not adequate, and trust me to do what only I can do. Andrew, one of the apostles, he spoke up in the story and he says, hey Jesus, hey guys, there's this kid here in the crowd who heard about our dilemma about the food. And so he brought us his lunchbox. And inside the lunchbox, we have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Now, if you haven't been paying attention, you need to come back now. If you're at another browser or you're looking at something else, come on back. Look at me. Jesus says something here that we need to pay attention to. This is how big, global, national, and community-wide problems are solved. And this is an invitation not only to his followers in the 1st century, but also to his followers in the 21st century. I think Jesus smiles and he says, bring them here to me. And there they stood. And there I stand. And there you stand with our loaves and our fish. You know, some of us have more bread than fish. Some of us have more fish than bread. We don't all have the same resources, but we all got a little something. And every single Jesus follower is invited to bring to him what little they have. Jesus says, you want me to do something? I want you to participate. You want me to do something big in your community? You want me to do something about addiction in your town? You want me to build faith into the next generation? You want me to bring comfort to senior adults who are isolated and lonely? You want me to work in the lives of students? Is it people at work that are on your heart? You want me to help your neighbors who are hungry and hurting? You want me to do something big for those in prison? Bring me what you got. You want me to do something big for your neighbor or your neighborhood? Then bring me what you got. There are 12 apostles staring at Jesus, confused. They look at the thousands of people. Then they look at this lunchbox with 5 pieces of bread and 2 fishes. And they look at each other. And they look at Jesus. And Andrew brings the lunchbox to Jesus. There it is. And they thought, okay, this should be interesting. And you might know the rest of the story. And Jesus directed the people to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and 2 fish and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and he broke the loaves. Jesus didn't go into deep, loud prayer. He simply looked up to heaven and gave thanks. He did it so that the people would know that it was God working through him, that they were working together. It was a partnership. And the prayer was for the benefit of the people there. So he broke the loaves. Then he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. You know what the apostles did? The disciples here. They did what they knew how to do. And they trusted Jesus to do what only he could do. They literally took the loaves of bread and fish and they walked by faith to pass them out. Walking by faith isn't coming up with stuff to do and then imposing it on God. This was Jesus' idea. He invited them to participate in what he wanted to do. Walking by faith is when you feel the nudge to do something that you can't do, and then you do it anyway. They literally, physically walked into the crowd, hoping they didn't look like total fools. Their active faith. They did something, and it intersected with God's faithfulness. And then something remarkable happened. They all ate, all the thousands, and were satisfied. And the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls, one for each of them, of broken pieces that were left over. They started with 5 pieces. They fed thousands and ended up with basketfuls of bread left over. One for each of them to remind them what happens when they trust Jesus and bring them what they have. You see, this is personal for me because I never had ambitions to be a pastor. I never had any dreams to come back to Ribera or to teach online. But I felt a nudge. Renee felt a nudge to do something. We had no idea how it would turn out. People have told us that you can't have a thriving church in the valley, and that online church doesn't really connect people together, that doesn't really work. That maybe the time for the church in the valley has passed, and that people are far more connected there to their traditional childhood religion and church than to be a part of a different kind of church. And we've been told that they don't want to be connected to other people, that they like to live isolated lives. That's why they live in the valley. So I stand before Jesus, sensing that he wants to do something in the valley, and here online with you and others. We want to create a church that people in the valley love to attend, and that they love bringing their friends to, that connects people from all over the valley together and online, wherever you're watching. And we stand before Jesus and we hear him say, Steve, bring those pieces of bread and those couple of fishes here to me. So here we are, bringing what we've got to Jesus to see what he will do with them. If you are a Jesus follower, right where you are, or you repeat this with me in your car, in your home, on the couch, maybe you're at the gym, you could say it under your breath, say it to yourself. Just say, I'll do what I can do and trust God to do what only he can do. Will you be bold and say it? I'll do what I can do and trust God to do what only he can do. Let's say that one more time. I'll do what I can do and trust God to do what only he can do. That's the walk of faith. And that's the walk that builds your faith. If you don't do this according to Jesus, You're going to have frail, feeble, fragile faith that isn't going to withstand the storms of life when they come. If we fast forward to the end of Jesus' time physically on earth, he's standing on a hillside. He has the apostles around him and a crowd of a few extra people. There's even about 20 or 30 women who had been traveling around with Jesus and supporting him financially. And they're there, just that small group of people that he had been teaching all these things to and these lessons to. And Jesus hands off the entire enterprise, the entire work of salvation on planet Earth, the restoration of all things, the thing that he started. He hands it off to them, to this same group of people. He says, okay, I've done it. I've died to pay for the sins of the world. I've began a brand new agreement between humanity and God. I've shown you what God was like. I've taught you all I can teach you. Remember the fish and the bread. Now, I want you to go and make disciples of all nations, which was hilarious because none of them had ever even traveled more than 50 miles from the place they were born. Go to the whole world? Are you kidding me? Make disciples, turn people who don't even speak our language into Jesus followers? Seriously? They were thinking, wait, Jesus, that's him. And then they remembered. There was once 2 fishes and 5 pieces of bread. Thousands of people. And they went, okay, we're just going to bring you what we've got. We'll do what we can do, and we'll trust you to do what only you can do. And ladies and gentlemen, 2,000 years later, here we are. This is the place, right here, that every Jesus follower gets to at some point. And if you hesitate, your faith atrophies. It gets weak, frail, and fragile. And it's not there for you when you need it. And it's not there for anyone else when they need it. But that nudge, that inner pull to do something, to lead, to start something, that's your invitation to experience God in a way that you're not going to experience Him from the safety of, hey, I don't got what it takes. Somebody else is going to have to do that. When that nudge comes, you don't know for certain how and what's going to happen when you step forward and when you lean into whatever you're being called to do. But one thing is for certain, your faith will get stronger, and perhaps the maturity of someone else's faith as well, because personal ministry positions us to experience God's power in our weakness. And personal ministry positions us to experience God's faithfulness in response to our acts of faith. Have you lost, or are you losing your faith? Do you want enduring, go the distance faith? Then don't just believe things. You've got to say yes to that nudge, to lean into that thing you feel you should do. Maybe right now you don't feel a nudge towards something specific. It could just be you saying, Jesus, I'll give you what I have. Do whatever you want with it. Step out before you're ready, because you're never going to be ready. What we know for sure is that those people who said yes, those are the people who change the world. The ones who hesitate and say no, no one knows their name. In fact, some of you know people who said yes to that nudge, and it changed your whole world. They once sat where you are sitting right now, feeling that nudge, hearing that call. They too were terrified and wrestling with thoughts and feelings of, not me, I can't do it, I don't have what it takes, I'm not enough. And your life and the future of your family has been changed because someone had the courage to say yes and bring what little they had to Jesus. Right now, somewhere in the world, there is a someone whose child, marriage, whose faith, and whose future will be changed once you have the courage to bring what you have to Jesus so he can do something remarkable with it. There's a story just waiting to be told, your story and someone else's story. One day, they will tell a story that includes how you stepped into their story and how it changed everything for them. And it all begins with you bringing Jesus what you've got. When you tell Jesus, I'll do what I can do, and I'll trust you to do what only you can do, and I'll wait to be amazed at what we can do together. You give them something to eat. And we'll pick it up there next time for the third essential for enduring faith.
Took a breath, you breathed your life in me. Yes, you did. For you have been so kind to me. And all the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. And oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found. 99, I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, but still you gave yourself away. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. Sing from the heart. For you have been so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. For you have been so kind to me. And all the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. And
mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. That's right. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. And oh, it chases me down, fights till you're found. Reason I deny, I couldn't learn it, I don't deserve it. Still you gave yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it's your love. Your love is overwhelming, and it's perfect, and it's worth it. Oh, your love is perfect, your love is worth it. Every moment with you, yeah. Your love is perfect,
Your love is worth it.
all you've done and will do. Sing it with me.
Your love is perfect. Your love is worth it.
Every moment with you, my King.
Your love is perfect. Your love is worth it.
All you've done and will do. Come on.
Your love is perfect. Your love is worth it.